The following podcast contains mature subject matter, adult themes, and may also contain profanity. You have been warned.
Hey everybody, welcome back to The Absurd, our podcast about things absurd. In this podcast we will look at news and mysteries and histories, things that are strange, stories that are funny, freaky, and even frightening at times. You heard that beep. That's the super annoying fire alarm check. It'll go off sporadically. Hopefully I can diminish the effects of the uber irritating sound of the archaic system that this building uses. So I do apologize. Oh, listen to that. That's Mel. That's the sound of Mel not being here. That's right, I'm flying solo. Got my wings. I don't know what that means. Mel is on a special assignment in the West African country of Sierra Leone for her dragon boat team. Not sure what that's all about. I don't know if there literally are dragons in Sierra Leone. But yeah, she'll be back next week. No problem. Everything's peachy. Unless, something goes awry with the dragon boats. So, yeah, it's just me and you this week. Should be interesting. I think you'll agree, certainly my opinion is, that Mel and I have fantastic on-air chemistry. We get along great. We work together well. And, yeah, man, it's all genuine, all organic, as the kids say. But, yeah, this week it's all Rudd. All Rudd. So, yeah, let's get into our first story. So I don't have any business to take care of. Actually, one thing I will say, though, however, a couple of friends that are leaving for Ireland, this Saturday, and they will be strategically placing cards for the absurd on their travels throughout the Republic and Northern Ireland. Yeah, so we're going international. Well, we've already got quite a number of international listeners, of course, but, now we're putting some physicality behind that international presence. So, yeah, that'll be cool. And so if you live in Ireland or Northern Ireland, Belfast, I think, is where they're going in Northern Ireland. Have a look. I don't know where, because that'll be up to them to decide where they put them. So you'll recall, certainly if you're Canadian, you will easily recall that about a month ago we had a federal election, and during which time I mentioned a political group called the Rhinoceros Party of Canada. It's gonna and I did mention that I was going to explain a bit about it, as Mel had not heard of it, and perhaps many others are not familiar with the Rhinoceros Party. So I'm going to give you the lowdown, the rhino story. So the Rhinoceros Party, officially the Party or Rhinoceros Party, is a Canadian federal political party. It originally existed from 1963 to 1993. It was refounded in Montreal on May 21st, 2006, and was registered with Elections Canada on August 23rd, 2007. The Rhinoceros Party was a registered political party from the 60s to the 90s, operating within the tradition of political satire. The Rhinoceros Party's basic credo is their so-called primal promise was, quote, a promise to keep none of our promises. They then promised outlandishly impossible schemes designed to amuse and entertain the voting public. The party claimed to be the spiritual descendants of Cacarico, a Brazilian rhinoceros who was, quote, elected member of Sao Paulo's city council in 1958, and listed Cornelius I, a rhinoceros from the Granby Zoo east of Montreal, as its leader. It declared that the rhinoceros was an appropriate symbol for a political party, since politicians by nature are thick-skinned, slow-moving, dim-witted, can move fast as hell when in danger, and have large, hairy horns growing out of the middle of their faces. Sounds like several people I know personally who aren't even politicians. Certainly the horns in the middle of their faces part. In addition to the national platform promises released by the party leadership, individual candidates also had considerable freedom to campaign on their own ideas and slogans. Brian Gold of the Rhinoceros Party described the party platform as 2 feet high and made of wood. My platform is the one I'm standing on. A candidate named Ted Not Too Sharp ran in Flora McDonald's Kingston and the Islands riding with the campaign slogan Fauna, Not Flora, promising to give fauna equal representation. He also took a stand on abortion, promising, if elected, never to have an abortion. And on capital punishment, he said, if it was good enough for my grandfather, then it's good enough for me. In the 1988 election, the Rhinoceros Party ran a candidate named John Turner in the same riding as Liberal leader John Turner and received 760 votes. Penny Hoare, that's Penny Hoare, Hoar, a safe sex activist, distributed condoms in Toronto while running under the slogan, "Politicians screw you, protect yourself." Other Rhinoceros Party ideals, policies, promises, if you will, are as follows. Rather than awarding money as prizes in the lottery, the winners would be appointed to the Senate of Canada. Building 1 nuclear power plant per household, including monthly distributions of lead underwear to Canadians. Indoor lighting would then be provided by radioactive citizens. The Rhinoceros Party pledged to eliminate small businesses and replace them with very small businesses, having less than 1 employee. Repealing the law of gravity. Providing higher education by building taller schools. Instituting English, French, and illiteracy as Canada's 3 official languages. Tearing down the Rocky Mountains so that Albertans could see the Pacific sunset. Eliminating unemployment by abolishing Statistics Canada, thereby eliminating the bureaucrats that measure unemployment. Making Montreal the Venice of North America by damming the St. Lawrence River. Declaring war on Belgium because a Belgian cartoon character, Tintin, killed a rhinoceros in one of their cartoons. Here's my favorite one. Adopting the British system of driving on the left. This was to be gradually phased in over 5 years, with large trucks and tractors first, then buses, and eventually including small cars and bicycles and wheelchairs last. The Rhino Party has declared that, should they somehow actually win an election, they would immediately dissolve and force a second election. We rhinos think that our elections are so much fun, we want to hold them all the time. They also declared victory after one election, claiming that all candidates were rhinoceroses, whether they knew it or acknowledged it. Yeah, so that's the Rhino Party. I've always found them to be hilarious. That list of proposals, of promises of theirs was by no means exhaustive. I could not, spend the whole day listing them all, but I've always found they were quite cheeky, quite funny, at a time when a little bit of levity was okay, And actually, in the most recent federal election, there was a candidate in my riding running for the Rhinoceros Party, and his name was Santa Claus Chatham. And his main policy promise was that if elected, he would make every day Christmas. Now, that alone makes me not want to vote for him, because not that I'm anti-Christmas, but every day, man, I'd throw myself down the garbage chute. I'd have to. I'd have no choice. But now you know about the Rhinoceros Party, and hopefully they run in your riding every election. So most of you are no doubt familiar with what are called the Darwin Awards. For those of you who are not familiar, or maybe aren't totally aware, the Darwin Awards are a tongue-in-cheek, humorous honor bestowed upon individuals who have, through their own actions, removed themselves from the human gene pool, often in a spectacularly stupid or reckless manner. The name, of course, refers to Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, suggesting that these individuals have selected themselves out of the gene pool. The main criteria for a Darwin Award are the individual must either die or become permanently unable to reproduce due to their own actions. They cannot have killed or sterilized others in the process. All right? So you're, like your chicken shit, terrorist bomber walking into a school and detonating themselves doesn't count as a Darwin Award. They're just assholes. So with this all in mind, I have unilaterally decided, with Mel's approval, to bring in a new section into the show. Now, this will not happen every week, because that's all we could end up doing. But I've decided to call this Darwinianisms. And I looked it up. There is no such word as Darwinianisms. So I'm claiming it as my own. So, as I said, Mel is parasailing off the Eastern Cape in South Africa. I wouldn't do that. Lots of shark attacks off the Eastern Cape in South Africa. So hopefully she doesn't become a Darwinianism. But in the meantime here, I've got something for you that qualifies. So I think this absolutely qualifies. I hope everybody listening likes animals. And, beyond survival requirements, that you're not into hurting animals. Because if you are, piss off. Well, I don't want you listening to this show. Or any of my shows. Or anything. Anyway. So this is really recent. This, last week. And in Iraq, which is a country between Iran and Kuwait. And what's else up there? I guess Turkey. Between Iraq and a hard place. No, that's a terrible joke. Anyway, a man was mauled to death and eaten by his pet lion just days after buying the beast to keep in his back garden. Beast. I'll tell you who I think the beast is. A resident of Najaf, southern Iraq, was horrifically attacked by the predator before it consumed most of his body on Thursday. Today, in a garden in the city of Kufa in Najaf, a citizen was attacked by a lion in his own garden and died immediately, spokesperson for Najaf police told local news. By the way, there's some editorializing in this article, which I gravely dislike. Police added that because the lion had eaten a large portion of the man's body, and because the animal refused to leave the remains, it had to be killed. Okay, I want to know what was with the urgency. It said that he died immediately. What was the do? Like, why did they have to kill the lion? It's a lion, you assholes. What's it gonna do? Well, you try to offer it some carrots instead? It eats meat. The victim, 50-year-old Akil Fakir Al-Din, had reportedly been keeping lions and other wild animals in his garden for several years, according to Tahir. Now remember, everybody, in case you don't know, in British parlance, garden means backyard, right? But on Thursday, the predator launched a surprise attack on its trainer before ferociously mauling him to death and devouring. If I had a lion and it attacked me, I'd be pretty scared. Not gonna lie, and I'm sure I would be caught off guard. But would it really be a surprise? You know, if the lion swooped down from, a 30-story building on wings, that would surprise me. If it had a knife and fork with which to eat me, that would surprise me. But it's simply attacking me. No, I don't think so. Anyway, one of the victim's neighbors, reportedly intervened and shot the lion with his Kalashnikov rifle, because everybody should have an AK sitting around, killing it with 7 bullets, as per local TV reports. But by the time the lion was killed, it was too late for Al-Din. He was immediately transferred to Al-Sadir Medical City Hospital in Najaf, but did not survive due to the extent of his injuries. That's a shame. Grisly images showed the man covered in blood as he laid on a hospital bed, and an official investigation has also reportedly been opened into the circumstances of the incident. Well, that shouldn't take long to investigate, right? A clip of the dead lion in the garden is also making rounds on social media, raising concerns about how Al-Din was able to keep the wild animal on his property. According to local reports, the victim had purchased the lion with the intention of raising and taming it at home. Yeah, how'd that work out there, Al-Din? Iraq continues to grapple with rampant illegal wildlife tracking. Iraq continues to grapple with rampant illegal wildlife tracking, a problem exacerbated by years of conflict, weak enforcement, and high demand for rare species. Poachers and smugglers routinely exploit the country's lack of regulation, targeting falcons from the southern plains and birds and foxes from the remote mountains of the Kurdistan region. Despite signing the Convention on the Protection of Animals in 2014, which aims to curb the global trade in wildlife, Iraq remains a hotspot for both the export of native species and the smuggling in of exotic animals for sale on the black market. The tragic incident in Iraq comes after a zookeeper was fatally attacked and eaten by lions after going into their cage to, quote, impress his girlfriend in December. Now, if that isn't Darwinianisms, I don't know what is. You're going to tame a lion. Yeah, that didn't work out so well there, did it, buddy? Leave them alone. Leave them in the wild. Take pictures of them. Go on a safari if you want to, with your camera, not your gun, not your, I've got a tiny penis device. Go with a camera and look at them. That would be cool. Still kind of scary, but that would be cool. But putting one in your backyard and then deciding what needs to be killed because it behaved like a lion, are you stupid? Like, really? But anyway. So again, that's our new segment called Darwinianisms. As I said, it will not be a component every week. Although there's not like there's any shortage of Darwinianisms out there. There's a gaggle of them every bloody day. Yeah. So we're going to go on to our final story. And this story has not been verified as being absolutely, for sure, true or real. But I like to think that it is, because I think it's quite a beautiful story. So, let's get into this. Now, this story involves a writer. I am sure many of you have heard about him, even if you haven't read anything by him. His name is Franz Kafka. He lived from 1883 to 1924. He was a Jewish, Austrian, and Czech novelist writer from Prague who wrote in German. He is widely regarded as a major figure of 20th century literature. His work fused elements of realism and the fantastique, and typically features isolated protagonists facing bizarre or surrealistic predicaments and incomprehensible socio-bureaucratic powers. Perhaps most common would be his work, The Metamorphosis. And of course, this is where we get the word Kafkaesque in our English lexicon. But this story is not about his published writings. This is more of a personal story from his life. Now, at the age of 40, Franz Kafka, who never married and had no children, was walking through a park one day in Berlin when he met a little girl who was crying because she had lost her favorite doll. She and Kafka searched for the doll unsuccessfully. Kafka told her to meet him there the next day and they would come back to look for her. The next day, when they had not yet found the doll, Kafka gave the girl a letter, quote-unquote, written by the doll saying, "Please don't cry. I took a trip to see the world. I will write to you about my adventures." Thus began a story which continued until the end of Kafka's life. During their meetings, Kafka read the letters of the doll, carefully written with adventures and conversations that the girl found adorable. Finally, Kafka brought back the doll. He bought one that had returned to Berlin. "It doesn't look like my doll at all," said the girl. Kafka handed her another letter in which the doll wrote, "My travels have changed me." The little girl hugged the new doll and brought the doll with her to her happy home. A year later, Kafka died. Many years later, the now adult girl found a letter inside the doll. In the tiny letter, signed by Kafka, it was written, "Everything you love will probably be lost, but in the end, love will return in another way." Message here is embrace change. It's inevitable for growth. Together we can shift pain into wonder and love, but it is up to us to consciously and intentionally create that connection. We could certainly use a lot of that these days. There's so much ugliness. There always has been. But as a student and teacher of history, coming up towards the end of my 6th decade on this rock, I am frequently dismayed that things aren't better than they are. And in fact, many ways, compared to let's say, the 80s or even the 90s, things are so much worse. And not for reasons that were completely controllable, manipulated, shall we say. So, at the end of every show, I say words to the effect of, be good to one another. Take care of yourselves and one another. And somebody pointed out that that is what Jerry Springer said. And yeah, he had really funky curly hair. But that doesn't diminish the message, You need to do that. You can be annoyed with people. You can get pissed off. I frequently do on the bloody daily, especially where I live. But there's lots of good. And you can either be part of that good or you can be part of the problem. Which are you going to choose? So, on that note, I am going to end my first ever solo show. As I said again, Mel will be back here next week. As I said, she's cutting the ribbon to open a new water park in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia today. Actually, she's going to be there a couple of days because you can't get there real quickly. But yeah, she'll be here again next week. And next week is our 1-year anniversary. Ooh-wee, ooh doggy. So I don't know what's going to happen. I doubt there'll be cake, but there should be. But question is, and this was asked online, on social media, by one of our very faithful listeners, Scott Mitchell, who asked the important question, is Rod finally going to get his fun dip? How long's it been? My God. But you know what? I'm going to be good. I'm going to be the good in the world, and I'm not going to complain. Mel is a wonderful person and a great co-host, so she'll get me the fun dip. I remain positive in my thinking. Anyway, everyone, thank you for tuning in. I hope it wasn't too boring with just little old me. And hopefully you'll come back in next week. Remember to visit us on our Spotify and YouTube and Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, whatever it's called. Please visit us on Facebook and on Instagram and on TikTok, The Absurd Podcast. And follow us. Please share us with your friends and family. Anyway, have yourself a peach of a week, and we will see you next week. And again, take care of yourselves and one another. Now I'm going to go and destroy my smoke detector with a hammer. Bye.
The Absurd Podcast is written, produced, and recorded by Rod and Mel. Music by Audionautics.com.